welcome to Q&A with S&A. I am Andrea, and with me today, as usual, my sidekick.
Hello, I'm Shane.
And today we have the super great pleasure of having our special guest, Lynda Slavinskis, who is a master's qualified early childhood teacher. And I just read that out, so I got it right. And her business now is called All the Doodah Day, and she does music and education movement programs for young people, little people though, right, Lynda?
Little people
Yeah. Tell
much
us
older
about
people
it.
as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Tell us about what you do.
So All the Doodah Day
Mhm.
is a preschool music program that I started in 2012.
Yeah.
And I go out and teach it to children in kindergartens and childcare centres,
Mhm.
and then expanded the business to include older adults with dementia. So I do that as well, which is amazing
Yeah.
because similar positive impacts in
Yep.
terms of brain development and things like that. So at the older end of the spectrum, we're avoiding the deterioration of the brain rather than developing it. But you can fire off new neurons anytime in life. And then I've also expanded into delivering professional development for educators and any adults working with children.
Yeah.
And I do live events as well. So concerts and community events and things like that. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Why do you do that? What is the reason behind All the Doodah Day and why you've decided to?
All the Doodah Day is based on the magic of learning through music and the performing arts.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer that the arts is life, and I wanted to bring it to as many people as I could.
Yeah.
I'm also a big believer that learning can't happen without joy, and my gateway drug to joy is music.
Yeah.
And I think my own experiences of life have led me to want to give very young people a voice. And I feel that I'm doing that through the business.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about your journey to this, because this is not where you started. So,
No.
and people would look at you like I did when we first met and was like, wow, oh my gosh, what made you do that? So tell us about where you were, where you come from, and how you are here now.
Okay, so I started life as a migrant, came to Australia with my family, was a chronic overachiever, and I did that in order to overcome the challenges that come with being different, to be accepted.
Yep.
And I found myself at a very high achieving selective school and did what was expected of me. So they rolled out lawyers and doctors.
Yes.
And so for 17 years of my life, I practiced law.
Yeah.
10 of those were in my own law firm. So I was a business lawyer practicing in Ashburton, working for really high-level clients. So who started off as mums and dads in garages, but then went global and things like that. So at 30, I started that law firm, but I was on a treadmill of achievement. And prior to that, I'd worked at Suzanne with the Beesons. I'd worked at Tattersalls with all of the trustees, and so lived the life and climbed the ladder, and did very, very well. And in my own practice, I didn't know any better, but I wanted it to be different, which it was. But I was still donning pinstripe suits every day, and I spoke in a much lower voice for all that time, which was very exhausting. So it wasn't me. I lost myself in that climb. And the view from the top was uncomfortable. And the view from the top caused me a lot of pain. And you know, I was doing work for Endota Spa. I was doing work for KX Pilates. So all these brands that now, you know, are massive. I help them grow.
Yep.
And I think what I tried to do was build relationships with people and be a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
But I hadn't accepted who I truly was.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And performing had always been a huge part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I started singing and dancing when I was 4.
Mm-hmm.
I played musical instruments. I did all the things. But I was told, and I told myself, so I'm not going to blame everybody else. I think sometimes perfectionism is a curse because the pressure that you put on yourself is more debilitating than what other people put on you. And so my whole body broke down from all the stress.
Yeah.
And I went through an infertility journey of 7 years, IVF and all that sort of stuff that didn't work.
Yep.
And then I had my baby magically, naturally, in 2008. And I had to go back to the office when he was 6 weeks old.
Wow.
Cue chronic illness.
Yep.
So in the end, I was crying every day, and that led to a chronic pain disorder called fibromyalgia, but I'd still keep going. Be climbing up 2 flights of stairs and lying down on the floor on the laptop to get the work done.
Yep.
And my supposed family of clients made life even harder because obviously their demands on me did not stop. Even though they said, oh, you can do it all, Lynda, you can be a mother and you can, all of that sort of thing. But I was getting calls to do franchise agreements. I hadn't even felt the anaesthetic wear off after the cesarean type of thing. And so I just kept going until Elijah was 3. And then he was bullied at kinder. And all of a sudden it was like a...
So that was, it was a switch.
A switch.
Yep.
It was like a light bulb just went... And I remember just losing it. And it was the beginning of my journey, my introspective journey back to myself. And that was 2012 thereabouts. And in feeling that mummy guilt, I went to deliver a music program at his kindergarten just for fun, just as, volunteer mummy goes and does it. And 6 months later, a little girl, I'd had a knee reconstruction, so it kept going. So I liken it to being hit by Mack trucks and then getting up and getting hit by another one, that period of my life. And I'm outside at the physio across the road from the law firm on crutches, and a little girl comes hooning down the road, Lynda! And her mum, she'd made her mum stop her SUV to get out of the car to come and find me on my crutches outside the physio with a painting that she'd done for me after I'd finished that program that she'd kept for 6 months.
Wow.
And the mum said to me, Lynda, she's been talking about you for 6 months. You really need to do this for your life. And I said, how the heck am I going to do this for my life? I'm running a firm with, 500 clients and, all the things. But I'm on this broken knee and I'm having to still clomb up the stairs and, and I gave it a whole lot of thought. And when Elijah went through the bullying, I realised that I had a lot of work to do on me. And so whilst I was recovering from that knee operation, I applied through VTAC to do a master's in education at uni. Then I forgot about it, just put it on the burner. And then when they still published those things in the Age in the day. My husband my husband rings me and says, have you seen? I said, what do you mean? What? Have you seen the Age? I said, no. And there it was. And the offer was there. And I went, I have to do this. So I ran the law firm and I went and studied full time at the same time.
Of course you did.
Of course I did for a year. And then I sold the practice. And the hardships didn't stop there. because I still then felt, so the mummy guilt gave way to the lawyer guilt of abandoning my clients after 10 years.
Yeah.
And that was not easy on me.
Yeah.
But I went and I taught kindergarten, I taught swimming, I did all the things all at the same time. I advised clients on the side. I did all of that until I was ready to go full time with all the Judade. And it went very quickly. It built up very quickly.
Yeah.
And what I learnt from the law was that I can talk to anyone. And I can have people trust me very easily, and you need that in early childhood. And I kind of just applied all of those lessons to the new business, but I did it as me.
Yeah.
I did it in the most authentic way that I knew how. And it's taken the last 10 years to kind of get it right.
Yeah.
Because I was still worried about being judged.
Yeah.
I was still worried about whether I was doing it well enough. But now I feel like Lynda, it has arrived. And I turned 50 last November. And that's where I feel like I've landed.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a podcast episode a couple of weeks ago with me and Chelsea and Simone from our business, and we talked a lot about the sorts of things that you're talking about here, the guilt, the stress of things, the imposter syndrome conversations that still come up on a daily basis, even in our team, and spending a lot of time. And now we have a legal business as part of so my world has expanded to know about issues in that industry as well as in the accounting industry, and it's pretty cutthroat.
Yeah.
Like it's not an easy place for people to be. And you and I just talked before we went on air about how the performing arts industry is also not an easy place, and neither of those industries are super easy industries to be in. There's a lot of competition and a lot of stress and negative feeling, and I think
egos and
for sure.
And I'm assuming it's getting better than what it was when you were part of it.
Yes.
But it's a long road, isn't it?
It is. It is. And I think I was really lucky. So it's weird that now in hindsight, I can look upon it kindly and I can look upon it with a great deal of gratitude. I was really, really lucky in that I always had amazing mentors, but they were unlikely mentors.
Yeah.
They were people that they did see me, even with all the costume on, if that makes sense. And so, for example, working for the Beeson family, who are very, very successful business people, they took a young 24-year-old, with them on their private jet, to tour all of the stores in New South Wales and Queensland one year.
Yeah.
And I went with Mr. Beeson to all their stores. And what I learned from him was he went there to say thank you to the store managers and give them a hug. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And flick them their bonus in person type of thing. And what I learned from him was that no matter how high you fly, that you've still got to be friends with the store manager or the mail boy or whomever it is.
Yep.
And he did that in the most genuine way. And even including me, who was a nobody, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Was such a gracious thing to do because you learn by osmosis. And so my career in the law, although I started in crime of all things.
Yeah.
And that was very, very difficult. But when I moved into the corporate world, yes, it was cutthroat. Yes, it was a boys' club. And yes, there was not a lot of diversity at the time.
Yeah.
So I was coming from 5 steps back,
Yeah.
brown, small,
Yeah.
a woman, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
but people like Mark Beeson didn't care.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
took me under the wing. And the other thing was my boss there, Mary, who'd been there for, years and years and years and years, and had started as a stenographer.
Okay.
Right? In the
Yeah.
day, which is a
gosh.
person that takes shorthand for
Yeah,
those
yeah.
who don't know. But
We don't even do.
we don't even do
I don't
that
think
anymore.
there will be people listening who don't know what that is.
Yeah. So she'd been in the business for a long time and worked her way up. And she one day said to me when I was about to leave, actually, she goes, "I never saw your colour."
Wow.
And I remember, and I said, "But, what about the little voice?" We were having a very personal conversation because I sound like a chipmunk, which is why I put on the fake voice. But she said, "Oh, but you're so different. You're like Melanie Griffith in Working Girl."
Yeah. It's not an unusual voice, but it is in the law.
In
isn't
the
it?
law,
That's
it's
what
unusual,
it is.
right? So whereas if when I was in Gaslight Records one day when I was sort of in my early 20s, and somebody came up from behind me and went, "You're a singer, aren't you?" And I went, "What?" I said, "Yes." I'm like, stalker. But they were like, "I know that you're a singer from the sound of your speaking voice."
Yeah.
And that was the very first time that I went, "Oh, okay." But then I shut it down.
Yeah.
Kept shutting it down. And then Mary said that to me, but I kept shutting it down.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm trying to say is, yes, it's cutthroat, but I was lucky.
Yeah.
Because all along the way, I could have been broken by it completely.
Yep.
But I wasn't because of those people that were telling me what they saw, but I didn't believe them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you do that differently now? If you were going through law school now and you were starting your journey, because there's lots of young women, it's much more common for young women to be doing law than probably was when even you were in law school.
Yeah.
Would you do that differently? Would you still be the colourful Lynda that you are, or do you think you'd try and push it away still? Knowing what you know now, of course.
Knowing what I know now, I would lob up as I am now and not care. And, people like Gina Liano and, people like that have trod that path and done it in all their brashness and, openness and colourfulness. And I feel like I would do that now and I would speak louder.
Yeah.
I wouldn't silence myself. And I think I would also express all the parts of me because what I did, what the law wasn't nice to me or I wasn't nice to me.
Yeah.
And the law kind of corroborated it.
Yeah, exactly.
It said silence parts of yourself.
Yeah.
And so I went through that first half of life or, that first half of my adult life with only the bits that I thought were acceptable out in the open.
Yeah.
And I hid anger and I hid sadness and I hid envy and I hid all of those emotions away from the world. But what it meant is that I showed up half, half-assed, if I can say. But, people wouldn't know that because even half of me is massive. In terms of energy.
I understand.
In terms of energy.
Yeah.
So people would go.
When Lynda's in a room, it's not a quiet, demure room. It's a room
right?
that's full of colour and energy.
Yeah, but I still felt like I was ripping myself off.
Yeah.
And so, I wouldn't. I would be different in that I would lob up as authentic Lynda. I would have still done it. I really appreciated the study and I appreciated that it gave me amazing communication skills.
Yeah.
I know how to write, I know how to speak.
Yeah, exactly.
I can speak to anyone. And that's thanks to a law degree.
Yeah.
But it's also thanks to the experience of being different within that environment because I had to seek out other pursuits to keep me sane type of thing amongst the black and white, to keep me seeing colour.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's also important to understand that that was part of your life and you studied and you loved that part of it and that's part. And then you can do something else.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's not, those formative years and those things that you do in the first half of your adult life do not define what you have to continue to do for the rest of your adult life.
Exactly.
And who knows whether what you do now is going to be different in another 10 years'
exactly
time.
Right.
So, just you don't need to be defined by that. You've done a degree, now you've done another one.
Exactly.
And the one that you've done now is so different to the first one that you did.
Yeah,
so,
but I felt like I was coming home the second time.
Yeah.
And I was 40 at uni with 18-year-olds.
Yeah.
That was funny.
Yeah.
But I cried in that first lecture. It was Sir Ken Robinson talking about how schools kill creativity.
Yeah.
And I sat there and I bawled.
Yeah.
Because that was me he was talking about.
Yeah.
And I felt that that's what it was, is that I shut down every creative ounce of myself possible. So I didn't sing for 16 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy, Lynda.
Yeah, I know.
Because, singing is not something that you need to do as a – did you sing in the shower or sing at home?
Not even.
You didn't even do that?
No, until the baby was born.
Wow.
And then I sang to the baby.
To him.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, for the rest of the time, not really.
Yeah.
So at uni, I did musicals and things like that, and that was fine.
Yeah.
But the minute I donned that pinstripe suit, I was silenced.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that as well, because we have another friend who is a lawyer and she's currently a lawyer, but she introduced me recently to a program that the lawyers in Victoria do, which is lunchtime concerts in the Supreme Court Library foyer. And they come and they bring their music. So there was a violin, a flute, a piano, and
there was vocals
to me,
as well, I think.
Yeah. And she plays violin, and I didn't know that about her until she came on our podcast and we found out that she played violin. And I think lawyers, professional people, are very talented in other areas, not just the law.
Yeah.
And I said that to her. I said, it doesn't surprise me that you are also a very accomplished musician. But the musicians that we heard in the law library that day were incredible, and they just rehearse after hours and do their own thing. And it's not surprising, because high achievers, like lawyers, because you really do need to be a high achiever to be a lawyer,
much.
Are always multi-talented.
Yeah.
It's not they high achieve in one area. It's across the board, everything in life.
And I love what you said about that multiple careers are possible. Nowadays, in our day, if I can put all of us in the same,
absolutely
in the same boat, in our generation, the options were limited. And I think the performing arts, but not just the performing arts, education. I was told I was too clever to be a teacher.
Yeah.
And that's
and we need more clever
we
teachers,
need more clever
right?
teachers,
We do.
right?
Absolutely.
And now that I'm a mother, I really appreciate, when my kids' teacher has multiple talents and, is able to deliver lessons to him in a way that he is engaged and all of and inspired.
Yeah.
And I think I just believed what I was told.
Yeah.
And I believed that you couldn't just be a teacher and you couldn't just be a performer.
Yeah.
And I think the removal of that just
Exactly.
is why I was able to kick a very prestigious career to the curb and pursue a different one. But I think my future may be to fight for recognition of the benefit of clever teachers.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to inspire others who might, be wrangling with those decisions. For them to think that's a legitimate choice for me.
Yeah. It's a super thankless job.
Yeah.
And one that is much underappreciated. And the fact that you when you're talking about the age and, getting your uni placements and scores and all of that, because scores are published in the age they were back then and they still are.
Yeah.
the score to get into teaching is significantly lower than it is to get into careers like law or engineering or medicine and hotly fought places at university for legal and engineering and all of those things. And teaching was always, when we were at school, the career that you went into if you weren't going to get a score to get into one of those other
We were told
degrees.
by our teachers that I'm only teaching maths because I couldn't become a vet.
Yeah. That was pretty common, wasn't it? That was
so
a common conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And imagine as a 14, 15-year-old making those decisions and your teacher, who you
is telling
respect, I suppose, is telling you that story.
Yeah.
So we believed it.
Yeah.
We believed
Well,
it.
the teachers are not doing a service for them for the next generation, are they?
Exactly
With that too.
right.
So it's all about the language.
It is.
Yes.
And I think discourse is so important. And I think on the other hand is where I struggled in the law was that I'm colourful and loud and fun and all those things, but I'm also humble to a fault.
Yeah.
And that doesn't work.
No.
It doesn't work in that world.
Yeah.
And I think I had, article clerks and people doing their legal placements at the firm who would say, but my lecturers told me that I was very, very special. No, you're not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No, you're not. You're doing your job. You do your job well, And it was because I'd asked them to, act as if they were working and run 40 files. But they wanted their hands held to run 2 files.
Yeah.
And then that was the attitude that I got, from the next generation.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, is that none of us is more special than the other. And that's what we have to remove. And that's why I went into preschool, is because if I can get them really young, not just to teach them things, but to teach them positive sense of self and humility and all of those values, I suppose, that lay us in good stead as grown-ups in the world, navigating the world. Then maybe that's how I changed the world. Yeah. I thought being a lawyer I'd change the world. Yeah. But now I feel like I'm changing the world even more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What is your favorite part of when you walk into a class? You've never met these young people before, so it's all new to them and you've never seen them before. What's your favorite part of that part of the journey, like when you start with them?
When I start with a group, I love how excited they are to see me.
Yep.
They're often surprised. They're often entranced by the outfit and the rainbow socks and the sparkle eyeshadow and all of those things. Because whilst I don't dress to be childlike, I dress to inspire them and to help them to feel seen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they love that.
Yeah.
And so they're like, oh, she sees us because, she likes rainbows like we like rainbows. Yeah. And that's the boys and the girls. The boys are always complimenting me on my eyeshadow and things like that. Yeah. So I make an impact the minute I walk in the door. I love that they're excited to see me rather than nervous to see me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like when you go and see someone in professional services, usually,
Yeah.
It's
nervous. Very different.
It's very different.
Yeah.
So they're really excited to see me. So my sense of self is boosted from the minute I'm in there. And then the anticipation of learning something new, perhaps. Yeah. But what I like to do is collaborate with them. And so that feeling of amplifying their voices, because mine was never amplified, brings me back to childhood. Yeah. But it gives me almost like closure, but also that it was worthwhile. Yeah. So my journey has been worthwhile to start them off at 3, 4, 2 even. I teach babies as well.
Wow.
So sometimes even from, 6 months old that I'm giving them voices and I'm amplifying those voices. So even before we start singing, I ask them what songs they like.
Yeah.
I don't go in with a plan.
Yeah,
but
course.
that plan goes out the window.
Yeah.
And so that spontaneity and that ability to think on my feet, which I needed in courts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I needed it in courts. But in courts, you had to follow the rules.
Yeah.
If you're on a pleasers. But I'm not asking anyone for permission.
Yeah.
And even in my own business now, it's very different to having my own business before, is that I don't have to ask for permission and I don't have to toe any lines.
Yeah.
So I do things very, very freely. And those kids are my peers.
Yeah.
And I felt like I never had peers before, even though I dressed like them, I talked like them, I walked like them, did all the things like them.
Yeah.
I never had peers.
Yeah.
And these kids, now Lynda's getting emotional, but these kids are my peers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if they're 6 months old or they're 4 years old, or then they find me in the car park.
Yeah, right.
At
Exactly.
Burwood Plaza.
Yeah. I'm sure that you've never had a client run up to you in the car park at Burwood Plaza with a picture saying, I love you, Lynda.
And sometimes when they're 11, so years later, 7 years later, I've had kids come up to me in the car park and go, Lynda, I was at North Melbourne Pool. I don't even live in North Melbourne. I was swimming with my friend and 10 children did doggy paddle up the pool. Lynda jumped out the pool, came and hugged my legs. And I'd taught them when they were 4 and they were in grade 6.
So the impact you're having. Yeah.
So the impact that I'm having is insane. And they'll come and they'll go, referring to a song that we sing. Or they'll be like, Lynda's here to sing this song, doo-dah, doo-dah. And so, yes, I was appreciated by my client. My clientele always appreciated me.
Yeah.
And they appreciated my difference, but they did not understand my difference. They didn't see me. And I didn't see myself in them.
Yeah.
Whereas here, all the doo-dah day, I'm seen, they're seen. I hold them.
Yeah.
I hold them, they hold me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I set them free.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful to see that impact so immediately, but then to also see it later as well.
Yeah.
And that's the best.
Yeah.
To be remembered is the best. And I think what they remember me for is not just the songs, but how it made them feel.
Yeah.
Because I teach it very differently. I'm not like a ballet teacher who says, you must do it this way.
Yeah. Yeah.
You must become a great dancer, or you must sing this way to become the best singer. I don't care if they sing out of tune. I still let them sing in a microphone.
Yeah. Great.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's about confidence. It's about embracing creativity. It's about a different way of learning.
Yeah.
I call it sparkology.
I think that's terrific.
So it's about finding your own sparkle, but not just finding it, but owning it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the lesson that I've learnt throughout this journey from the other career to now is that not only do you need to find yourself and put your parts together, but then you got to own it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And so now also helping the older generations and those with dementia.
Yes.
So what's your take on that and how you think you're making an impact with them as well?
One of them said to me a couple of weeks ago that I was like drugs. Better than drugs, she said. You're better than drugs.
Wow.
Right.
You're like a medical and a mental doctor. You are better than drugs. So the impact that I'm having is I'm bringing joy where there is little joy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And music unlocks their brain. So I quite often will enter a room and people are catatonic.
Yeah.
And then I will play a song from that might open up long-term memories
Yes.
because mostly their short-term memories have gone.
Yes.
And when you tap into that, so it'll be an old tune, like from the 50s,
Yep. Yeah.
or some Elvis, or, or some Neil Diamond for the ones that have got early onset. And all of a sudden they start to talk. They wake up and then they start to talk. And I don't only listen to that. I tell them stories about my life too. And so for me, with the elderly with dementia as well as with the children, it's about connecting with them first, then teaching them. And so it's through that. So, then they'll know all the words. So they don't know what day it is. They don't know their own name, but they remember Lynda. They may not recognize their own daughter, but they remember me. Not because I'm fabulous. Yeah, maybe. But
definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
But it's that unlocking. And that unlocking comes not just from the music. That's the first step. It's where you take it from there. So I honour them. I ask them questions about their lives. And quite often when they've heard that song, so say they've heard the Anniversary Waltz by Vera Lynn, or we do, The Lion Sleeps Tonight. We did Bollywood dancing last month. It sparks conversation. And then they might not be confident enough to speak in front of the group, but they'll come to me afterwards and they'll go, "Hey, Lynda, do you know my grandson's getting married in Brisbane on the weekend, but I can't go because of my heart," and, or whatever it might be. And there we make the connection. And so the music has opened up the possibility for connection. And I think why what I do is magic is not because it's rocket science, but I think it's the way that I do it. And it's seeking that connection. And I say nothing without joy. You have to choose joy. And so for the oldies, it's about helping them to choose joy where there's legit darkness in their brains. And, I teach them a really magical thing happened, if I may. Last time I was with my dementia group, is that we learned last year an Aboriginal song in Yorta Yorta language that I do with the children. So we'd learnt it for an intergenerational session that we were going to do in a childcare centre with that group. They learnt that song. They loved it. They learnt it off by heart. I give them clapping sticks, the whole thing. But what they've also learnt is acceptance of difference, of diversity. A lot of them have grown up in an era where we did not accept Indigenous people, all of that sort of thing. 6 months later, they still remember that song and they request it. They know every word. And now they're saying, I'm teaching them songs in Karen language. Because I teach a lot of Karen refugees where I work now with the kids. And at first they were like, "Oh, nah, all these people were coming and they're going to take over the country." That kind of quite close-minded, but traditional views of the world. And then a month later, because I explained to them, I said, "Oh, if that's how it was going to be, I wouldn't be here. My parents wouldn't have been able to come." And they were like, "Oh." And then you'd think that they would forget by the next month, because quite often they repeat things and that sort of thing. The next month, we sing that song and a lady puts her hand up and says, "Lynda, there's plenty of room for everyone in Australia, isn't there?"
Excellent.
And so, I feel like you go in via the heart and then you change the minds
Yes.
as well.
And this is why we need clever teachers.
Yes.
Because you can't teach people how to teach. You can teach them how to teach curriculum, but you can't teach people that.
To synthesize information, to see beyond, to see beyond the curriculum, to see beyond what's in front of you, and to read a room, I guess, is And that ability to think on one's feet.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, thank you, Lawyer Lynda,
Yeah.
for that,
Yeah.
you know, and to make please, I guess.
Yeah.
But now it's not please, it's
No.
a celebration.
Yeah.
It's a celebration of what they know
Mm-hmm.
more so than what I know. So
Yeah.
I don't fill empty vessels full of what I want them to know.
Yes.
I adventure with them
Mm-hmm.
because I'm still on that journey.
Yeah.
You know, but what I'm bringing now is not sadness, like where I was, 13, 14, 15 years ago. It was a lot of sad, a lot of heaviness.
Yeah.
I've shed that.
Yeah.
And now I can go in and sprinkle my sparkle everywhere. And then I think it sticks.
Yeah.
It's like glitter hairspray. Like
it's on everything.
It's on everything now.
Yeah.
And people can take that as they want to. Some people don't see it. That's fine too.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because we're talking about teaching and, being able to teach, tell us as we finish up this podcast, tell us about what you're doing now, which is teaching teachers, professional development and things like that, and giving people your perspective and your skills. So tell us a bit about that.
So whilst I love teaching children and the elderly, and I love that interaction, I can't clone myself.
No, there's only one of you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I did try to clone myself. Like I tried to, have presenters and things like that, and just it didn't work. And so I've developed a professional development program where I teach teachers to think, teach and sparkle like me, but not because what I do is the best thing or the right way, but to inspire.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that will then have a compound effect because I have a lot of teachers go, how do you do that?
They would. I can imagine.
How do you engage immediately?
I've never been able to get this little person to do this before.
Or the autistic child that comes straight to music, or the kid with learning difficulties that or the nonverbal kid that can speak. How do you do that? How do you engage families? How do you engage the educators? And all I want is to spread those little bushels of sparkly goodness, I guess. Have them see how I do things, explain it from a theoretical perspective, because I think theory is really important, and I'm a nerd. Always have been. Surprise, surprise. A nerd dressed up in rainbow colours. But I love learning and I love sharing knowledge, and that's what I want to do. And that's what I have been doing. I've been speaking at conferences. I've been delivering really interactive workshops where I get teachers up, singing, dancing, losing their inhibitions first and foremost. So I want them to find their own sparkle. And then if they can do that through my drug, which is the arts, then maybe theirs is pottery or
exactly.
I don't know.
It doesn't have to be singing and music.
Sport,
there's other things.
Or exercise or visual art, whatever it might, sewing, I don't know, cooking, that they can then see that that's legitimate and that there is a lot of learning that can occur within that. So that's the future. Education of all, not just of my students, is going to be where I'm at. So, and that may lead to educating parents. It may lead to educating allied health professionals that work with children. And really it's about how do we see children? And the lawyer in me comes out then because, I was on the board of Ozchild when I was 18 years old. And the Treaty on the Rights of the Child came in, not long after that. And Australia took 500 years to sign it. And I feel like I see kids as having human rights. I see them as having intelligence, that they're beautiful, they're capable, they're creative. And I want everyone to see them that way.
Yeah.
But not to just see them as, not only see the high achievers.
Yeah.
I don't want them to be like me, who is seen only because I achieved. I want them to be seen for who they are, for their background, for their disadvantage, for their, their struggles, all the things, but also for their, curiosity. And they can learn for themselves, right? They just need us. There's a beautiful quote. We could probably finish up on it if you want.
Yeah.
I hope I get it right. But
we can always put it on the website.
Put it on the website. But Albert Camus, which is the existential writer from France, said that, if I walk ahead of you, I won't lead. If I walk behind you, I might follow. But I'll walk beside you and be your friend.
Yeah.
And that's my philosophy in a nutshell. That's what I want to be for children, for adults, for teachers, for everybody.
Yeah.
Is to walk beside them and adventure with them.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for spreading your sparkle today with us. Thank you for telling us about where you get the sparkly hair.
Pleasure.
We will get some of that for our sparkle events tomorrow night.
I know. Yes, we do.
Amazing.
I was channeling Lynda when I said we needed a little bit of sparkle for that.
I love that.
Thank you so much for
My
sharing with
pleasure.
us. We will share all of your details as part of this podcast, so people will be able to find you with all the Doodah Day. I know you're on the socials and you do fun events online as well as face-to-face.
Yes.
We will share all of those.
Thank
so
you so
anyone
much.
who's listening can connect with Lynda directly, any childhood educators or anything who want to share a bit of Lynda's sparkle, get in touch with her. So thank you.
Amazing.
We really appreciate you.
It was wonderful.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.